Hello gardeners, today we are starting some snapdragons and we're going to use the snail or seed snail method I've been seeing around. It looked really cool and I found some materials that work much better for making these seed snails, and we're going to try it out from start to finish. We're going to pot up some snapdragon seedlings and then we're going to see what they look like a couple weeks later and plant them out and all of that good stuff. So in these little trays you'll see I have hundreds of snapdragons in this small little seed starting tray. This is how I normally start my snapdragons, and then I will pot them up into bigger cells later. But for this batch, we're going to pot them up into a seed snail. So I didn't actually start the seeds in a seed snail, but I did pot up into the seed snail to let them get bigger. But I will show in this video a little bit later how I start some tomato seeds in a seed snail. So we're going to go ahead and pull some of these snapdragons out. These little sprouts are some smaller snapdragons, I believe. And then I've got a bunch of vegetable starts that I'm starting in trays in this room. I just thought I would show you guys those really quick. But we're going to go ahead and divide these up. Believe it or not, snapdragons can handle being divided up like this. We're going to use this windowsill foam, roll of foam. This is the best material to use for seed snails. I haven't seen anyone else use them. I've seen them use like the shipping foam sheets. Those are way too flimsy. These are really, really sturdy, so you can use them over and over again and wash them and all that good stuff. This is some soil mix that I just prepared. It's a sterile seed starting mix, and I've got a little bit of slow release fertilizer in there, and I don't have it sopping wet. I just have it, wet enough to where it can hold a clump when you squeeze it together. Kind of the consistency you want when you soil block. So all I'm going to do is lay it out on this plastic foam, and we're going to tamp it down, and then we'll divide up these snapdragon seedlings and stick them in there and roll it up. It's that easy. So like I mentioned earlier, you can divide when you plant your snapdragon seedlings like this. The roots can handle quite a bit of disturbance, actually quite a lot of disturbance, and they divide easily because I use a coconut coir seed mix when I start these, so it's easy to sort of tease the roots apart. It just takes a little bit of time. And you can see these are really small. They've only been growing for about a week in here, maybe a little more than that, but they're going to grow quite a bit by the time we plant them out. So I'm just dividing all of these up, and then I'm going to lay them all out into the soil, and we're just going to roll them up. I like starting my snapdragon seedlings this way because it saves me a lot of space, even more space than the seed snail would. Because I could put thousands in a really small area, like a 2 foot by 1 foot area. I could fit thousands of snapdragon seedlings there. So now we're just going to roll it up nice and tight, not super tight, but tight enough to keep things together. And then I just like to use rubber bands. I use 3, and I stick one at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. And this is the best way to do a seed snail because you don't have to worry about tape coming apart. It holds everything together really well. It can expand. And then if you want to open these back up and add more soil to buy yourself some time, if you're not ready to plant them out yet, you can do that. And they can grow in the snail for quite some time before you need to plant them out. So here they are. Potted up in the snail. I'm going to go ahead and make another roll, and we're going to start these super beefsteak tomato seeds. So when I'm starting in the seed snail, I like to put the soil in first, roll it up, and then I will drop the seeds in from the top and cover it up with a little bit of coconut coir or more seed starting mix and water it in. And that's how I like to start them in the roll. And I will show you in just a second what these tomato plants look like now. So now I'm just going to add some soil over the top and water these in, and then I'll show you what they look like now about a week and a half, 2 weeks later. So here we are about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and these are the super beefsteak tomatoes that I started in the snail. And then I've got some giant Belgium and persimmon ones that I actually potted up from a seed tray into a snail to see how they would do. Over here I have some zinnias that are rose tea zinnias that I potted up into a seed snail, so I didn't start these in the snail, but I potted them up in this from a tray. And then in this roll, I actually started the zinnias in the snail here, and they did pretty good. Okay, so here's what the snapdragons look like about a week or so after those first clips I posted. They've been outside in the rain, so they're a little bit laid over, but they're nice and tall, and we're about to get some days in the mid-30s and mid-20s next week. So it's the perfect time to get them in because that cold will pinch these back, because I always pinch back my snapdragons. You guys have seen in previous videos. I cut them back quite a bit, and normally this is a stage where I would prune them back so that they could bush out more and give me more blooms, but I'm going to let the weather do that on its own. And snapdragons are hardy down to 0, and we don't get that low here, so they'll be fine. And I'm going to plant them in this bed. I have other cold hardy seedlings in this bed. There's a few snapdragons in the front there. I have some Cliveden Beauty delphiniums in here. I have some foxglove that I started from seed last year that should bloom this year. And I also have some ammi in here. All of those are very cold hardy, and we're going to mix this up so that the snapdragons are densely planted in here. And come late spring, we should have some white and lavender blooms, because I'm going to plant the opus lavender snapdragons in here, which if you want those seeds, you can pick them up on our site, zinniaseeds.com. So that's what I'm going to plant here. This is what they look like. They're really beautiful on the underside of the leaves as well. So we're just going to open these up and see what they look like. And these could stay in here for a lot longer, and you can keep opening these up and adding soil instead of potting up. But these are ready to go in now. I want them to go in as soon as possible. So here's what they look like in there. They look pretty good. I mean, they're definitely not going to be difficult to pull apart. This is a grouping of 3, so I can just take these apart here. And then we'll just plant these in here. I'm not very ginger with my seedlings. As you can tell, I can be a little bit on the rough side when handling them, but they can, when they're young like this, they can handle a lot more root disturbance than you think, and they do perfectly fine. I think I have another little one right here. I plant mine about 6 inches apart, sometimes closer. That's just the spacing that I like, and I've never had an issue with it. And I don't try to do neat rows either. As you can see, these are not like lined up, they're just kind of sporadic in there. I like that look, and you can't really tell anyway once they're really bushy and they're grown in. So I don't bother trying to do tidy rows in a raised bed like this. You can also plant your snapdragons a little bit deep, not too deep, but a little bit deep, and they will reroot in, kind of like tomatoes in a way. I'm not going super deep, but you can see they're not shallowly planted. But yeah, this is a pretty cool method. They're easy to get apart. I'm not having any issues with that. I'm sure if these were in there a little bit longer, there might be some root tanglement going on, but because I planted these, I used some really loose soil, it shouldn't be an issue. My biggest complaint with this method is that the plants are quite floppy and the roots tend to be longer instead of more dense like a root ball. So they're a little difficult to handle in this way, and if you're planting out in a field or in the ground, that's not ideal. If I had started these in a tray, the stems definitely would be more sturdy, and you'll also notice that the plants are all different sizes, almost in different growth stages, because some get blocked out from the light. I don't like that. If I grew these in a tray, they would all be the same size. So I don't know if I would use this for mass planting stuff. It's definitely okay for small batches and if you need to buy some time and not have to pot up though. So we're opening up the second one. This is the same variety. So you can see if I needed these two, they could have stayed in here a lot longer because the roots didn't even go all the way down to the bottom, which is nice. And like I said earlier, the great thing about doing these seed snails is that you don't have to pot up. So if you need to leave them in here longer, you could just open these up and add more soil and then roll them back up, which is kind of cool. Overall, I think this is a fun new way to start some seedlings. It's really not practical for my application though, because I found the plants to just be too flimsy and in all different growth stages because you're densely planting the seeds. Obviously, if you put a lot less seed in the snail roll, then you wouldn't have that problem, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the snail roll. The whole idea is to save space and grow a lot of plants in a small space. But like I said, for growing a large amount of plants and flowers, it's really not practical, especially when you want them to be all the same size and you want sturdier stems and a sturdier root ball. I do like the fact though that you don't have to pot up and you can just open them up and add soil if you need to buy more time if you're not ready to plant them out. So that may be worth it to you when you try it out. Let me know how you guys like it if you do try it, and I will make sure to update you on this bed to see how healthy these Snapdragons ended up being compared to ones I started in trays. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.